Redditors who have been clinically dead. What did you experience in death, if anything?
I was dead for 6 minutes. I was laying on the gurney and I was getting colder. Somewhere my body started warming up and everything became really calm and peaceful. I was not longer in pain. All the noise from her just went away. 'Twas really enjoyable. I was thinking about my daughter and I was remembering all the things we had done. Slowly it was just black and nothing. There was no knowledge of anything. I explain it as it was like before I was born. Then the worst thing in the world is being revived. I starting hearing loud noises, I felt this massive pain. Then there was the nastiest stench ever. The smell was like every dead animal had crawled in my nose. The smell was so bad I started vomiting. I remember the doctors turning me on my side and watching my vomit spray on a nurse. Dying was the most pleasant thing I have ever experienced and being revived the worse.
This really was not the ideal post to stumble across during my nightly existential crisis.
Not really sure what happened and it still freaks me out to this day. My daughter was 4 and developed pneumonia. Her breathing would stop in her sleep so we took her into the emergency room. She was there for a total of 5 days. For the first 3 days her health kept deteriorating. And on the 3rd day my girlfriend got a call that her mother had collapsed and was taken to the hospital. She was without oxygen for 20 minutes and was declared brain dead. That night my daughter woke up and asked about Grandma. No one had said anything to her or in the room with her. We asked her what did she mean. She told us that Grandma came to her in a dream and said it's not your time yet. I'll go for you. Immediately the next day she was almost 100% better. I think about death a lot. Like, an insane, worrying amount. I cry about it a lot too. I'm terrified to die, I'm terrified of what comes after, and I'm terrified of losing people I love. This thread has actually made me feel a bit better about it, so thank you up. I lost my mom last year and I remember her telling me when I was little, because I would say at first, that she was scared to die. I'm glad to know that it isn't as bad as we both thought.
Anaphylaxis, wasn't breathing. I considered all the hallucinations I experienced likely due to hypoxic episode until I told my mom what I saw. A middle-aged man who wasn't in scrubs standing still at the end of my bed while all staff were running around and doing their business. I was having a nonverbal conversation with him and he was telling me to calm down, focus on breathing. He wore a tropical-style button-down shirt, one of those old-school newsboys hats and had a very pleasant demeanor. Mom showed me a photo of my grandpa that I never had seen before, and it was the guy at the foot of my bed, and he died before I was even born. Edit, didn't know this would comfort so many people. Just remember not to worry too much about death and remember to enjoy your life while you have it. Friend of mine described it as deeply relaxing and that she could feel herself drifting away, but was brought back just as she was ready to leave. After that, she embraced life and death. She said she doesn't fear death anymore since it was so relaxing to experience.
Awesome. Everyone seems to be in agreement that death was awesome and euphoric. That is comforting to hear, thanks everyone.
Overdosed. Flatlined. Didn't see a damn thing. When they hit me with Narcan, I woke up really mad, ripping 4s out of my arms, cursing out the poor, amazing staff who saved my life. Good times. 6 years ago now with all that shit behind me luckily. Edit, Narcan.
A black void. Then waking up and are surrounded by people running around like crazy. I was cold AF, but in reality, just room temp. Had to add and say that it was relatively peaceful. Like being wrapped in a big warm blanket.
My father committed suicide recently this year, and these responses are helping me find some comfort that his last moments were peaceful. Edit, I just wanted to say thank you to all of those that reached out. I'm going to counseling soon to help get through the hard times. I'm sorry for those that have experienced loss, and I'm glad we got to share this feeling of peace reading these even if it's just for a moment.
I know 3 people that have been clinically dead and have come back. What they described is something much different than what people are talking about here. They all said, if you paraphrase, that it feels as if you're passing out. Someone compared it to OD'ing on whippits, nitrous oxide, a feeling of your conscience slowly getting focused into one point in the exact middle of your head, while your limbs lose feeling in a tingling, pleasant way and then you lose consciousness. One girl said that when she came back into conscience she was hallucinating because she had no idea what was going on and that she started dreaming of something safe, i.e. her mother hugging her in a warm bed.
I coded after surgery. I remember being able to see and hear everything and understand what was happening, but I couldn't physically feel anything. It was deeply unsettling.
I died twice after I got MRSA into my heart area after a major surgery. I don't remember much of anything when I was out, cliché as it was. I saw a light, but damn, that year sucked.
Reading this thread while stoned was a terrible mistake.
A friend of mine described death. She was technically dead twice, as being surrounded by darkness and floating with some sort of warm gel-like substance covering her. She never wanted to leave that state.
I don't know what I experienced while I was dead, but when I woke back up, so to speak, I remember wanting to experience it permanently.
As someone who lost his younger brother 4 months ago to psychosis-induced suicide after years of painful and miserable addiction and anxiety and depression, many of these comments give me more of a sense of peace that he just couldn't be here anymore and needed to go. I'll hope he felt okay in his final moments and wasn't in the constant pain he felt 24/7 here and in his mind. Serious tag or not, I'm glad the majority of the comments seem genuine. Thank you.
I was dead for a very short period of time, like 30 seconds to a minute. There's a big misconception about it. It's not like sleeping at all. I'll try to explain. There's always a sort of white noise in the back of my mind. It quiets down when I sleep, but it's still there. I never noticed it before I died, but I do now. I don't want to romanticize death, but when I was out, it was like this perfect nothingness. And nothingness is so hard to imagine normally, but once you experience it, and they bring you back, part of you wishes you could have stayed. There's no positive feelings there, obviously, but it takes away everything bad too. All your stress, the nightmares, the troubles. All gone. Just nothing exists. It's beautiful in a way. I'm not suicidal at all, and hope to live the rest of a long and happy life. But I'm very much looking forward to a lack of consciousness when I do eventually pass again, and I can honestly say I don't fear death anymore. I'm probably too late to this thread, but I have an interesting story, so I'll share it. I was not the one who experienced this, but it was one of my teachers I had in high school a few years ago. She was having open heart surgery in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and coded 3 times during the surgery. When she came out of surgery and began to regain consciousness, she kept speaking of all these souls that she saw. I remember her saying she was scared for them and wasn't sure what would happen to them. I can't remember exactly what she said about the souls, but I do remember her saying that they had all just died in an accident. Her surgery was on August 1, 2007. This was also the day that the I-35 Watts Bridge collapsed in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the same city she was in. It collapsed while she was being operated on.
Clinically dead on 2 separate occasions. I didn't experience any visions or light, and I didn't feel anything at all. It was like a switch was flipped and my existence was just shut off. Coming back was another story. Slowly I was able to hear the voices of those around me fading in, and they slowly got louder until I was able to open my eyes. That's it. Nothing spectacular. 1 second you're here, 1 second you're not.
Not me, but right before my great-grandma passed, she kept trying to explain these vivid colors and smells. She kept saying how beautiful things were, and she was saying it's unlike anything she ever saw. She was an extremely religious woman. A little while after the colors and smells she told us, he said we have to say it's okay for her to go. I mean, my whole family was standing around saying goodbye. I vividly remember this even though I was only 9. Once we all said it was okay, she passed on. Also the night before, she was talking to herself. We asked her what's going on and she pointed at the chair across the room and said please don't be rude. I'm having a conversation with her and we were confused and asked about what and she said the woman was explaining what we were going to do with our futures. So strange and I'll never know if it was real or what was happening. But it's kinda cool to think it's real. Not necessarily clinically dead but I was pronounced dead 2 times in the same night after a car accident I was in when I was 16. My great-grandma pulled me out of the car and we walked through this really peaceful field of flowers. When I woke up 2 weeks later she was sitting on the edge of my bed and told me to tell my mom that everything was going to be okay. My great-grandma died when I was 10 and before that she had been bedridden after a stroke. I never saw her walk or heard her talk in my entire life. It was amazing and beautiful.
My mother experienced a long corridor with arched doorways. One was open and she said she refused to go in. She suffered a massive stroke at 27 from a spinal tap done a week earlier. Edit, a letter.
Former co-worker of mine died during heart surgery. I think she was out for 90 seconds or close to it. She wasn't religious or anything. She said that she remembered being in the room and seeing her dead uncle and cousin standing at the far end of the room watching everything going on. Edit. Oh now my inbox is having an ND. Fun fact, she shared this information during an icebreaker. Give us a fun fact about yourself. She didn't remember seeing a light or anything, just seeing her dead relatives at the end of the room.
I saw my grandpa. We talked for a while and he said I could go back with him, or stay. I looked down and saw myself in that hospital bed with my brother holding my hand. He felt it turn cold and I never saw him cry that way before. Went back into my body and felt more pain than I knew in my life. Been a year of recovery and I lost most of my memory but I'm happy. Skull fracture, traumatic brain injury from heat exhaustion. Edit, here's a link https://imgur.com/a/72q9fwf, with a pic of my brother's reaction when I woke up and when my mom played music for me trying to get me to wake up.
I wonder if there are people that tried DMT, ayahuasca that also had a near-death experience. Are the experiences as similar as they say?
This actually happened to me Monday. Tuesday morning actually. Was going through a lot of money issues and thought I was going to lose everything. Hung myself in the closet. Fiancé found me, cut me down, called 911. I was blue, dead in her arms and I pissed in my pants. Tongue is still swollen, have no idea how that happened. The EMS brought me back. I was dead and they brought me back. I'm still at the hospital now and don't see me leaving anytime soon. Anyway, I saw nothing. Just darkness. No sounds. No white light. Nothing. Black. Next thing I know I woke up in an ambulance. Suicide sucks guys, don't even try it. People love you.
Not me but a guy I know claimed to feel extremely at peace before having his heart started again after attempting suicide. He was schizophrenic in a poor country and fell off the map after neglecting his mental health. Felt bad for him but he was not someone I wanted to spend a lot of time with.
As a living person, God, this is scary. Not me personally but my grandmother after giving birth to my uncle was clinically dead for a bit. She told me that she felt herself rising out of her body and she ended up in the top corner of the room with the view over her bed and the doctor. It was then that she willed herself back to her body and was alive again. Edit, after looking through this thread, it seems as though this has happened to a lot of people. I always just thought she was a bit crazy, as this was the story she told me for her justification for believing that there is a God, afterlife, but I guess there is truth in her story.
Overdosed on caffeine, have a weak heartbeat. Before it actually happened, I was hallucinating, dreaming and couldn't see clearly. All my fear faded away in an instant. Then shit all just went black, and it felt like I was asleep but I didn't remember when I actually fell down and blacked out. Woke up when my heart restarted wanting to stay in that sleepy state.
Not me but my grandfather. Went into surgery for a triple bypass and his vitals tanked. He said during that he suddenly was laying in his bed at home. His friends and family members who had passed away in the past were waving him over and saying to come home. He told them not yet and then went back.
This happened well before my GF and I got together, but she intentionally overdosed on methadone and was clinically dead briefly at the hospital. She said she could see the doctors and her husband in the room from above, and then she found herself in a meadow with her first boyfriend just talking like nothing had happened. Then she felt herself getting pulled out of there abruptly and suddenly sprang up with her eyes wide open and she was back to life.
When I was a really young kid, I had a serious case of epiglottitis, which left me clinically dead for a moment. It felt like a dream where I was in the sky, kinda like an angel, Cupid looking down at myself in the hospital, with doctors and nurses surrounding me, my mother crying. I didn't seem to care very much, but I remember thinking that I want to go back. I was very young, maybe 3, but I still remember this quite vividly. It seemed like an out-of-body experience. For sure this was influenced by the fact that my parents are Catholic and I enjoyed looking at Cupids in paintings, because they looked a bit like me when I was young. That's at least what I tell myself.
I was hit by a car while riding a bicycle without a helmet when I was 17. I suffered a traumatic brain injury including a brain bleed which led to a condition called status epilepticus. Not dead, but close. My heart worked, but I was without oxygen for a long time. I woke up in the hospital nearly 2 weeks later in severe pain. I had one hell of a headache. I had a weird recollection of a dreamlike state where I dreamed in 8-bit, kinda like Mario. Except it was a field of flowers and a bunny rabbit. It was quiet. I felt nothing. I was riding my bike 1 minute ... and completely gone the next. It was a traumatic event I still have issues with nearly 15 years later.
My grandmother when she was a kid was walking her dog when she got hit by a car. She and her dog hit a fire hydrant and at that instant she rose up from the city block she was at with her dog. The dog survived. She reached the top of somewhere and a voice told her, look at your mother, who was crying, you can't go. And you have a lot to do. So she came to the hospital and tried to close her eyes and go back and was crying because it was so peaceful.
Coded after attempting suicide with Ativan, which is stupid. My son had passed away 3 years before, and I remember going to a place without time and watching him grow up without the neonatal Marfan syndrome and hydrocephalus that killed him. I should point out that I lost consciousness before code was called, so I don't remember rising out of my body. I do remember slamming back into it after being shocked, though. That was no fun. My life changed completely afterwards. I left my wife, who wasn't helping me in my own struggles with Marfan syndrome, got the guts to come out as trans and found a great woman who supports me and is totally in love with me. I don't worry about anything but love and taking care of the people around me. Life is too short for anything else. A visit with my son sorted it all out.
Hey guys, all the descriptions of death in this thread sound pretty euphoric, but if you're thinking of suicide, please reach out and get help. There's nothing magical about the effect it has on families.
Never been dead. Just been around hundreds of people before death and almost 100% of those people were the most at peace with it. The family is never ready but the person is. It's eerily beautiful how many people have told me it's okay, they're ready to die.
So many people describing this floating feeling and seeing the hospital room from above and seeing themselves. Interesting.
I'm curious if someone can answer my question. Some on here describe dying like an off switch and I wonder if it can be compared to losing consciousness. I lost consciousness once and it felt like you would imagine a light bulb slowly getting darker and darker before stopping to shine. First you notice that your brain kinda stops for a moment, you still see the world, then you stop processing it, you don't hear anything, your vision blurs and you're gone. It's terrifying in my opinion. Waking up feels like the exact opposite. You wake up with intense brain lag-like feelings, Everything has this unnatural delay to it until you finally get some oxygen into your brain. Does dying or getting back to life feel anything like that? I really hope it doesn't. Also want to know if anyone had a similar experience. Man, losing consciousness is really weird shit and way too scary.
People who say they were aware of everything but can't move is my nightmare. It's one of the reasons why I want to be cremated. Can't stand the thought of being trapped in my own dead body forever.